jobs or really had good attitudes for jobs. So they needed both spiritual help and material help in the sense of getting ready to work and be on their own.
Yeah, yeah. So a theme from that is getting at the root causes, and really all of the root causes, not addressing one symptom at a time, you would say.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you go way back in the root cause. And from the many conversations I've had with homeless folks, and you know this a lot better, a lot of them grew up with what the psychologists call what? ACEs,
Yeah.
adverse childhood experiences. And
Mhm.
often that's hard to overcome. So that's the root of lots of stuff, and you have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually did a study on ACEs here amongst our population a few years ago. And I don't have it in front of me, but the gist of it was that if someone has experienced 3 or 4 adverse childhood experiences, they're off the charts for all kinds of
Right.
things further down in life: incarceration, violence, drug and alcohol addiction, and an overwhelming majority of the students who in our programs had experienced a high number of ACEs, and
Yeah.
so that leads to a theme, I think, that we often ask ourselves when we're helping people is, don't ask why someone is like the way they are. Ask what happened to them, and
Hmm.
not only what happened to them, but maybe take that back three generations, because what we often find is there's a cycle of brokenness that goes back not just to the parents but to the grandparents. And so, yeah, yeah. May I ask, when in your work, uh, are you able to generally or specifically identify some of the root causes of homelessness that you're speaking of here?
Sure, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug addiction. And again, these are, I guess we call them root causes, but in a way they grow out of childhood and so forth. So secondary root causes, but that's real. A lot of mental illness. Um, yeah, those personal things. I'm not at all downplaying questions of availability of housing and so forth, but it's really those personal things that stand out
Yeah.
in the sense of root causes, and you got to deal with those.
Mhm. Um, well, we mentioned that article that you wrote in the Wall Street Journal. Now, you came and stayed here. You stayed at the Tustin Veterans Outpost, which is
Yes,
our program for veterans, and you were here for 4 days in the summer, a couple years ago, I think.
right.
Uh, and so your article spoke very favorably, not just of Orange County Rescue Mission, but other faith-based organizations. Um, and I think it's pretty clear that you've seen that faith-based organizations outperform secular organizations. Um, so is that true? Would you agree with that?
Oh, very definitely. Again, there are there are there are really good faith-based ones. There are some that are mediocre, but most often when a person's been, at least I've found, when a person's been an alcoholic or an addict for a long time, and you say, what changed? The person will say, Jesus.
Hmm.
And that's the way it tends to work. Whether you believe it or not, that is whether the researcher believes it or not, that's the objective evidence that's out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you can probably answer this better than most. For those of us who have been transformed by the Holy Spirit, who hear that and they say it's because of Jesus, and I've just talked to a few guests already that have said that was the driving force. Uh, but you're a researcher and a writer. Could you make that case for why that's important to say a cynical or a disbelieving secularist about why it's so effective? And they say, "Yeah, I don't buy this Jesus stuff." What can you make a case for what for why it has a lasting and changing impact on people?
Yeah, it's Bob Dylan from what 1979 or so that you're gonna follow something. You're gonna follow someone.
Yeah.
Who is your God? And um, the 12 steps people talk about a higher power. Okay,
Mm.
if your higher power or the thing that powers you up to go through the day is a drug or alcohol, you're not going to want to give that up. You're going to
Mm.
serve somebody. You can either serve your habit or what you need in order to beat the habit is often God. There was a Scottish preacher named Thomas Chalmers in around 1820 who said that basically when you have something really powerful, you need something more powerful.
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol are powerful.
The expulsive power of a new affection.
You got it. You got the name of
Yeah.
the sermon. Perfect.
Yeah. That's good. So looking at sort of a broad level, because I think you have insight into this, do you have any ideas for policy changes at the federal or the local level that would produce more effective outcomes for the homeless?
Well, the during the 1990s, when compassionate conservatism was in style for a while, as opposed to perhaps cruel conservatism or something else, I used to go around the country and would give speeches to try to raise some funds for community organizations, some of which were helping the homeless and others. And the question I would ask towards the end of my stump speech was, if you had $500 that you could give to any organization, let's say to help the homeless, would you send it to Washington? And no one would raise their hands. Would you send it to your state capital? Maybe a couple of people. Would you send it to City Hall? Maybe several. Well, how many of you know of something in your own community? And sometimes this was homelessness, sometimes other things. Some group in your own community that deals with a basic problem like that more effectively than you think the federal government does. And just about everyone would raise their hands. And that to me was an indication that it would be great to have a tax credit where people could take all or 75% of their contribution to a place like OCRM or some other place, take it right off their taxes, and hopefully that would mean less in federal taxes. In other words, less money going to Washington and more money going directly to community groups that the people who live close to them think are effective. It was popular, almost made it with Governor George Bush when he was running for president, but that proposal died in Washington in 2001, and I'm hoping it can be revived.
Do you think between from 2001 to 2025, where we are today, it seems like the general perspective of maybe the younger generation is that the government's purpose is, amongst other things, to provide all these services. It seems like there's almost a pervasive faith that the government can fix all these things at a very broad, high level, versus what you were advocating for 25 years ago, or even longer in the 1990s, that local churches, parachurch ministries are better equipped to handle all that. Why do you think there is, and maybe you disagree with that statement, but do you think that there's more faith amongst the younger generation in the power of government to fix the ills of society like homelessness than churches or parachurch organizations?
No, I agree. It's the local groups that do it. It's called within the Catholic Church the principle of subsidiarity, but other people it's a basic conservative principle of decentralization. I'm not sure that young people are necessarily thinking that the federal government's going to do the job. I think more often they think no one's going to do the job. They've seen failures, but it's a matter of faith among some that the federal government should do it. I would say it's a look at this pragmatically, just see what's worked and what hasn't worked. I wrote a book in the 1990s called The Tragedy of American Compassion. And it's a tragedy not because compassion is a tragedy. Compassion is a very good thing. But with good intentions, people built big programs, and those programs just did not work. And that's what tragedy is. Tragedy is when you have a good thing you want to do, but you take it too far and you fail. Yeah, I think we hopefully can learn from those mistakes.
Well, that's good. Do you have any examples of programs that stumbled despite their good intentions that maybe we could learn from?
Oh, sure, all over, and not just governmental programs. A lot of the old style missions often fail despite good intentions because they just gave a sermon and nothing else. And again, that was effective for a few people, but it's more effective if you back up the saying of the word with the doing of the word by helping people get out of their bad habits and also learn job ready attitudes and also some basic skills where they can get a job.
Yeah.
I've seen better programs that teach at least some basic computer skills so people know what to do, help people get their GEDs, learn a trade. And if you can combine the spiritual help with that direct type of physical help, then I think you are much more likely to help people come out of homelessness and poverty and actually become independent.
Yeah. Amen. I think there's a tension in today's discourse on treating homelessness where there's this idea and this has been the predominant philosophy for the last maybe 15 years of housing first, that moving everybody into a house or some sort of housing unit, and then, and I'm being a little glib here, hope for the best, but provide them with a few wraparound services and hope things turn around, versus a transitional program where people are getting, like you said, the vocational training, the education, getting their high school diploma, being equipped to be able to go out into the real world and get a job and become a productive member of society. But predominantly, at least at the government level, we've been funding housing programs, but not transitional housing programs.
Yeah.
And what rescue missions, and by the way, I don't know if you know this, but there's 70 of us doing this today, sitting on a bench. Are you talking to anybody else today on the bench?
No one is foolish as you to ask me.
I'm glad that you're talking to us. Thank you. But predominantly, these transitional programs have not been funded. So the only ones that by the federal government. So the only ones that are left are Christian organizations like rescue missions, the Salvation Army, and yet that's where you see real, true life change happening.
Yep.
So
that is true, and the things I remember from OCRM that really impressed me. A lot of the people, both coming there and other places, they've just cycled around. They've had a lot of them were foster kids and moving from place to place and had a lot of family disruption. And they didn't see any progress in their lives. So I like it at OCRM that they can move from freshman to sophomore to junior to senior. Do you still have the different color lanyards?
We do.
So yeah, that's cool stuff that helps people say, oh, I'm actually making progress in my life. And that's something they're not used to.
Oh, amen. It always brightens our day when someone proudly comes up with their new color lanyard.
Yeah.
And so for those listening who don't know, when people move through the program at each stage, they get a new color. And so for them to say, hey, look, I'm now a sophomore, I'm now a junior. And we even have purple for alumni who come back and help on the program. So that's a really good point. Having something to move towards, not even on a macro level, like in 24 months, I'm going to go out and get a full-time job. But what I hear you saying, and I would have to give more thought to that, is even on those little micro steps along the way, people don't get that in most of the just pure housing programs. And there's something of value there. Yeah. Okay. I have at least one more question. If you could influence a major philanthropist or politician on homelessness, what's the one thing you would suggest?
Or how do they say in Spanish, poco a poco, little by little? In other words, programs that help people make these small steps are really important, because another thing you find, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this, is there's not a huge amount of executive function in terms of being able to think way ahead and plan ahead.
Yeah.
The question often people used to, well, what's going to happen the next day or the next week? And if you can help people, if you can fund programs that help people take small steps, step by step, bird by bird, is really important. So as opposed to programs that make grandiose proclamations, I would look for ones that actually say, hey, step by step, we're going to help people make progress.
That's a really good point. It's the grandiose claims that typically get the big grants.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Wow. Anything else on the subject of homelessness? And I see you as an expert on really where Christianity intersects with helping, and not just in homelessness, but in other fields. Any other thoughts on your expertise in this and where Christianity intersects with homelessness?
Well, you can say from a secular perspective, we have a society where we don't want any establishment of religion. We don't want government to give preference to one religion as opposed to another. But insofar as there are government programs, they should give preference to programs that work. And I think one of the things we can very definitely show is that the Christian programs are more effective in helping people than secular programs. So whether people agree with it or not, whether people believe in Jesus or not, these programs work and serve a public purpose in terms of helping people come from misery into productive lives. And that's what we should all be in favor of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a dilemma, though, because what I hear you say is that if it works and if it's a faith-based program that works, that's what should be funded. But yet, parachurch ministries like Rescue Mission and others are very, very skeptical of taking any sort of government funding. In fact, not all rescue missions are like this, but Orange County Rescue Mission is 100% privately funded. We have always turned away from the government funding, because you never know how that's going to come back to bite you in terms of what you can and cannot teach. They say that you don't want to let the camel's nose under the tent, that before you know it, you have to do things a certain way. What is your view on that? Should parachurch organizations take the government money?
Usually not, and only if it's something for a small part of the program that the church or parachurch organization is willing to give up readily if it's going to be told to do something. So let's distinguish among three types of government, of help you can get from government. There are the direct grants, where government's going to be passing out money to particular organizations. I would tend to avoid those very definitely, except in rare circumstances. There are also vouchers, and we know about educational vouchers where parents can use it for schools. The problem with that in homelessness is that a lot of, for example, alcoholics and addicts, if they have a voucher and they can go anywhere they want, they're likely to go somewhere which is just going to allow them to keep drinking and drugging. So I don't think vouchers works very well in that population. But then there are tax credits, where let's say someone who is already seen and maybe contributes to OCRM, maybe contributes $500, which is as much as the person can afford. But then with a tax credit, the government doesn't have any say in where the money goes. A person can give the money to OCRM. It has a particular tax designation and take that off their taxes. So it's not the government determining where the money goes. It's the individual taxpayer determining where the money goes. And that can really help to magnify what particular individuals can do. So I'm game for that type of thing. I'm against government direct grants because that leads to strings attached.
Right. It's very wise. Very wise. All right. Well, Mr. Olasky, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you. I know you're busy. I know you have probably a million things going on, but I appreciate that you were willing to hop on the bench virtually with me for 20 minutes today. Any chance we get you to come back and write another article that makes it to the Wall Street Journal about the rescue mission?
I don't know about the Wall Street Journal, but I'm now editing Christianity Today, and
congratulations.
I'm going to be out in Southern California at the end of January to give a talk, and maybe if you're willing, I can drop in.
Hope to see you. That would be amazing. Yes, let's do it.
All right. Good. Well,
all right.
Well, have fun. You're on for another 21 hours or something?
Something like that. Yeah. Well, we're just not thinking about it. We're just going to keep going.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time. Have a great day.
God bless you. Bye.
God bless you as well. Thank you.